Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic:
NSFW, Reddit, what was your, oh shit, this person is a psychopath, moment when meeting people? I was friends with a couple. The wife made up her affair with me to hurt the husband's feelings. The husband showed up in my condo with a gun and was detained by the security guards and later the police. I had no idea about any of it until later when the condo's security contacted me. It's crazy how you can just be dragged into a situation that can easily get you killed. The fact she tried to hurt his feelings that way makes it clear it's a very unhealthy relationship. The guy is a psychopath. Not only did he think murder was acceptable, he put the blame on someone besides his partner. I was hanging out with a gay friend of mine once, and found myself alone with a woman I'd just met. So she starts coming on to me hard. Now I may be a bit clueless, but this set off alarms in my reptilian hindbrain, and so nothing happened between us. Later she confessed that she was trying to get me drunk and horny so my friend could then step in and coerce me into sex with him. People do some crazy-ass shit, for sure. The guy was setting you up to be sexually assaulted. This makes me sick. Edit, both were setting him up. Both are absolutely vile people. A kid I went to primary school with invited me to his house after school one day. Not many people talked to him because it was a private school and he was only a student there because his dad was a groundskeeper. I didn't want to go but didn't want to be a dick like everyone else, so I said yes, but I couldn't stay long. We went behind his house and there were several bare spots in the grass. Some of them a single stick sticking up in the middle while others had a thin plastic tube poking out. He was very excited as he started digging up one of the spots with a hose poking out. He pulled up a jar with a dead baby bird in it. The hose was poked through a hole in the lid to let air in. He went on to tell me he likes burying things alive. Sometimes he seals the jar tight, sometimes gives an air hose, and even puts a little food and water in to keep them alive longer. He said you can't bury them too deep or you can't hear them trying to escape. Occasionally he would pour water down the tubes to drown the animal. I was 8 to 10 years old at that time. I'm 52 now and it still makes me sick to think about that. Okay, wow, this is literally the worst one by quite a long way. How bizarre and horrendous and well thought out. Absolute psycho. Cruelty to animals at a young age is literally considered a key diagnostic criteria for actual clinical psychopathy, so yeah. I, 20F, was dating this dude, 23M, for a few months and we were getting on really well, then we both ended up having to move for our jobs at around the same time. He wants to try long distance so we call most days and watch movies together in our off time. The time zones mess it up a little bit but it wasn't too bad. Out of the blue one day he just says he doesn't want to be together. I'm like wow okay, a little blindsided but sure. So I start just going about normal life again, and hanging out with friends, the normal post-relationship stuff. After about a month, he begs, like absolutely begs to get back together. Movie type stuff, sending flowers to me at work, sending handwritten cards almost daily across thousands of miles, and even bought me a ticket to fly out to see him. So I'm like okay, whatever, I'll go and see what he has to say. Worst case scenario I just fly home. So I got a ticket for 2 days after because I just figured I could head out if he was being a dick. He picks me up from the airport and is basically how he used to be. Just telling me he missed me and he regretted it as soon as it happened and it was the biggest mistake of his life, the usual. So we stay with his family because he's like, oh please don't get a hotel, I already feel bad enough about the whole month, just stay with us, and I just thought hey, free room I guess. Everything is completely fine for the first few days and then I get this alert on my phone, and it's a hurricane warning and saying they're pushing my flight for 4 days later. I'm like, crap, I need to get back to work. I only took like 3 days. When he gets back to the house from work, I tell him about it and he's like, oh, I know. We already started boarding up the windows. I was a little freaked out but not too much because I guess that's normal for big hurricanes. So the next morning, he shakes me and wakes me up and tells me to come to the living room. I was like okay. When I do, it's him, his 2 brothers, his sister, his mom, and his dad, people I have only met on this one instance, and he has a binder. They sit me down and each of them reads a passage from the binder of why we shouldn't be together, and why I need to move on, and he breaks up with me, in his parents' house, in front of his siblings, in the middle of a hurricane power outage. Then, because of the hurricane, I was stuck there for 4 more days with these freaks. Probably not the most psychopath person I've met but this story is still just so strange to me, I had to post it. Edit, the most psychopathic person was a friend from high school whose whole family peed in the bathtub. The toilet was only for number 2. What the, that's wild OMG. Yeah, this story actually left me speechless. That's like out of a fever dream. You sure they all weren't just some ghosts who died in a hurricane? But on a serious note, What did you do there? Were you just quietly sitting in your room for 4 days or? Honestly, yeah, I just kind of sat in the room and lived off a box of granola bars. I was too nervous to leave the room, then I snuck out the morning of my flight and got an Uber. They pulled out a whole binder. Like, why waste your time in the first place? Speculating here, he wants her, they've been trying to convince him otherwise for some stupid reasons. Good riddance. Something about this screams, Mormons. Was chatting away with a guy in a pub. Seemed like a normal nice dude, got on really well. Some point in the conversation he casually mentions he's not long out the jail for torturing a guy. He never said torturing, he said what it was he did to him. He slipped it into the conversation so casually as if he was telling me about running to the shop for a pint of milk. Never saw it coming. Asked around another day and confirmed he wasn't full of shit. Did he get used to telling the story in jail and forgot he was out? That would make a lot of sense to me. I spent only a week or so in a psych ward once due to medication complications, and once I got home I caught myself bringing my toiletries back to my room after a shower. It's crazy how fast you adapt to a new routine when you need to. A new normal. Needed to readjust to not being able to openly discuss mental health issues again. Normal. People find it a bit taboo subject. I've never done time in criminal jail, but I imagine it's not all that far off, to be honest. 3 meals a day, lots of boring time waiting around, surrounded by other sick people. Lockdowns when someone inevitably has a meltdown. Had something similar happen when I was in college. The guy the first was chatting with seemed fairly genuine and also just casually brought up he had gotten out of prison for second-degree murder. Afterwards he asked me what I was going to school for, and I answered honestly, criminal justice. It was a fair exchange of being honest with one another that he said if I were a cop, which I'm not and never planned to be, he would respect our encounter just based off of treating each other like humans. We continued our conversation and asked him what helped him during his time in, and he answered religion and studying. He ended up being a foreman for a construction company and assimilating well, IMO. Apparently murderers are usually among the better behaved inmates in prison. Was walking my dog down a main road, on lead. A lady was walking her dog off lead. Her dog stopped in the road, causing cars to stop. She had no control of it. Her dog lunged for my dog. I asked her to put her dog on a lead. She said she will stamp on my dog's head and let her dog kill mine. I knew it wasn't even worth arguing with crazy, so I carried on my walk. She then set her house on fire 2 weeks later with her children inside. Luckily they were okay, but yeah, madness. Edit cause I can't respond to every comment, lol. Yes, I have a statement. Yes, she's currently in prison, was released after the arson. Then rearrested for further crimes. Her children are aged 4 to 7. That story got wilder with every sentence. This story makes me angry. So, one time, a friend came over and brought a new friend with them. Seemed like a nice guy. He was quiet and kept to himself. I was a young, single woman and far too trusting of people at the time, I think. So, my friend mentions that this guy has just recently got out of prison. I ask him what he went away for. He then proceeds to tell me that he and his friends had followed a young girl into a local park and raped her using various sharp objects they found on the ground. They each got extremely long sentences. His happened to be 12 years. What made everything worse was that he ends the story with the fact that she killed herself because she couldn't live with what they did to her. Needless to say, he was never allowed around my home again, and I had a very stern talk with my so-called friend. Edit just to clarify, the guy friend, I got rid of him quick sticks, but I felt unsafe and had to do so over a short time period. The fact that he had associated with such scum and that I was a young lady living alone at the time, was the reason he only got a stern talking to. Not only did it not occur to him to avoid this guy, but the fact that he brought him into your home having knowledge of that incident. I'd steer clear of that friend entirely after that. Poor girl though, rest in peace. That particular friend lasted a few short weeks after that, if I remember correctly. And yes, rip that angel. 12 years is not a long sentence for that. That's life without parole worthy. Maybe not legally, but he needs to be there. It was nothing. I can't imagine how her family feel to this day. Rapists never get very long. My brother. As a kid he used to enjoy watching animals die. As an adult, there were plenty of moments which reminded me that he was little changed. The scary thing was the complete indifference he would display when you tried to explain why doing stuff like this was wrong. It was like the thing that would normally naturally horrify people over committing such incidents was just completely lacking in him. Serial killer in the making. Geesh! Exclamation mark. Yeah, pretty much. He even once drowned a neighbor's cat to death in a sink because he didn't like it in his garden. As a kid, he used to enjoy drowning rats a lot. I met the new boyfriend of an acquaintance, and within 10 minutes of the conversation he was referring to women as holes. It was amazing how I suddenly remembered that my husband had requested I come help him with something. Sounds like the same type of guy that would lose his shit if another man were to refer to him as a hole. Man forgot he has holes too. That's why they call it a manhole hole. It was an Uber driver. My wife and I took an Uber down to the bars one weekend. Once he picked us up, I could easily tell he was on something. While we were crossing a bridge on the interstate, about halfway to our destination, he says, "Isn't it crazy that I could swerve off the road and kill us all right now?" I told him to get off on the next exit and cancelled the ride. I also reported him to Uber, so hopefully nobody has to get in a car with that lunatic again. Really should have kept that intrusive thought to himself. For sure. Like I'm sure most people have at least thought it while behind the wheel, but to say it